Hello, I am on the corner of Harrison Avenue and Perry Street, Perry Street in Boston, Massachusetts, downtown Boston. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a parable, the parable of the mustard seed. So there are three versions of the parable of the mustard seed, one in the Gospel of Matthew, one in the Gospel of Mark, and one in the Gospel of Luke. Agree on many generalities and some specifics, but they're each just a little bit different. I'm using this wall which has been painted this scene. Clearly this is an Egyptian motif. I'm not going to get into breaking it down from an Egyptian perspective, other than to point out that it can be used to represent astronomical truth. You can clearly see there are stars at the top. There's a whole You have the dark background of the sky. You have a lot of stars on it. You see the yellow light here as a backdrop, which is like what we experience during the day here on Earth. A mustard seed is yellow and round like the sun. And this could be used to represent sunlight. So the backdrop for everything we do during the day is sunlight. But that is also, in a real way, the case at night. You can just imagine, you see here, there's a woman's face that's part of the night sky, and there's a figure that appears perhaps to be a male looking at her. That could be the moon and the earth looking at one another. And what happens in our region of the solar system is that sunlight strikes the moon, and then the moon reflects that light back towards the earth. And the sunlight strikes the earth, and the earth reflects that towards the moon. So you see here this kind of an intimate relationship. It's almost a kiss. You see the woman's lips are pursed. And this could be the earth and the moon sharing sunlight, and it's almost like it's a reflection. So if you think about the parable of the mustard seed, Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed." Again, the slightly different versions. What the commonality is that the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Mustard seeds are small seeds, and then they become the largest of all garden plants, and birds come to nest in its branches. So you see here there's a bird there, but you can imagine that the stars could be birds. So when you think about see how this is, the stars here are in a human body. There's feet and legs over here, and then they go up, and you have the torso, which is quite long. You have breasts and the face and arms over here. So it's almost as if the night sky is not only the night sky here, but also a human being. So if you think about the parable of the mustard seed, again, Jesus said, it's like a mustard seed. It's tiny, but it becomes the largest of all plants, and birds come to nest in its branches. So if you think about human memory, see how the stars here are at the top, like the brain is at the top of the body. Think about human memory. Imagine that every star up there is a memory of something. Now imagine that Jesus was using a metaphor to poetically describe how memory works to make a point. Imagine that memory was like when you go to remember something, you take one of those stars, you pull it down from the sky, and essentially put it in the place of the moon. So you have taken the smallest of all seeds, like a mustard seed, pulled it down from the branches of your mind. And if you look at the human brain, their tree metaphors work very well. There's a brain stem, Neurons and dendrites are branch-like structures. You can look that up. But essentially, birds nesting in the branches can be stars in the sky and also memories in your mind. And you take the bird down from its branch and then you put it someplace, or maybe you take it in your hand and you look at it and you study it. And that's a memory. But it's also, memory is not simply harvesting what's already there. It's also planting something new, because once you've taken that memory down from the sky of your mind, from the branches of your mind, and regarded it closely, turned it into a moon for the time that you are remembering, in the same way that the moon's reflection of sunlight is a memory of sunlight. Sun hit the moon received that sunlight, and then passed it on to the earth. So what you're looking at when you see the light of the moon is actually a memory of sunlight. So when you're looking at a memory in your mind, you're looking at something that occurred in the past, as if you pulled a star down from the sky and held it in your hand like a pearl maybe, and regarded it closely. But what happens with memory is we remember remembering. And the self that remembers is not the self that experienced. So what will happen is you will pull down a memory, pluck a star from the sky, make it a moon for the time that you spend remembering it. But if you think about the lunar phases, sometimes it's a full moon, sometimes it's a new moon, sometimes it's a waxing crescent, sometimes it's a waning crescent, sometimes it's a half moon. We focus on different aspects of the memory based upon why we're remembering, and based upon the context of what's going on in the moments that we're remembering, and based upon experiences that we've had since the original event occurred. So you take that moon, at the end of remembering, we effectively pluck that pearl, that moon, out of the sky and put it back into the sky as a new star. So you can imagine this could be the memory of one important event in someone's life. It happened, and then they have remembered it and pulled it down from the sky, turned it into a moon, focused on certain aspects of it, noticed certain different parts of it that they hadn't noticed before, put it back into the sky over and over and over again. And you see, maybe this is a really important memory to someone, and they just kept focusing on that memory. And every time they remembered it, it becomes a new star, which is a star. And so it's very similar to the original event in the same way that stars are similar to one another. But there are many different types of stars. Stars have different sizes and masses, and there's a lot of differentiation among stars. So you have effectively here, this could be one important event in someone's life. Often these are childhood events, but they don't have to be. They are often events when we are young chronologically, but they don't have to be. But this is something very important happened to this person, and they have remembered it and created more and more different versions of that memory in their minds. And so the kingdom of God, which is like a mustard seed that is the smallest of seeds, just one of these stars at the beginning, becomes this vast tree, as Christ puts it, or the largest of all garden plants. And the birds come to nest in its branches. And you can see all the light from that one memory has been amplified over and over and over again. So maybe this is a beautiful memory. This is something that the person remembers that had to do with love, perhaps, which can be like flying. And Christ says in another place in the Gospels, he's asked about marriage, and he says that the angels in heaven will not be married. He's asked in the context of a question about divorce. But if you think about stars and how far away they are from one another, they are at vast distances from one another, despite the fact that they look close to us. They look like they're geographically right next to each other, married, like living in the same place. But in fact, the angels in heaven, the stars, the birds in the sky are at great distances from one another. And of course, Christ knew that because he knew the design of the cosmos, and he was pointing that out too.